Everybody, welcome. This is the live recording of the MTG Rebelcast. It feels like a live audience is in here when I do it this way. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me. We've got Optimal MTG and John Ramos MTG joining us today, along with myself, Max Damage All Nines. And today's topic, it might be a short discussion, it might be a long discussion. I'm not really worried about the length. I think it just needs to be touched on because I think there's some nuance that needs to be applied. That's the short and sweet of it, really. But I have the tweet up from this week, the hot take of the week. I thought there were some other issues around Wilds of Eldraine, looking like Infinity cards. I thought there were some issues around the cost of Commander Masters. There's a lot of stuff to talk about, so it was surprising to me, honestly, that this issue came up this week. So, anyway, the issue is, and I'll just go ahead and read the tweet out loud. The issue is, Connor Roth, I don't know who that is. Before this happened, I didn't know who that was. Had a hot take this week, and everybody just kind of went off. It has since gotten 409,000 views. Anyways, the hot take is, proxies should not be encouraged. I worked hard for my expensive cardboard, and then some people show up with only expensive cards proxied. There's still appropriate times for proxies, but it's insulting for people to shortcut what I've earned. Continued, Magic is a game that should be able to be enjoyed by all. However, formats such as Legacy and Vintage are not. These expensive formats are for true veterans who have cultivated a collection and have years of experience. I love to drive, but I have no business driving a NASCAR. Okay. All right. There. Look, right off the rip, I have to say the tone is awful. Like this guy, it just comes off very, very elitist. And I think that was the general feeling in the MTG community. Is very gatekeepy, very elitist. Now, it completely overrides any nuance to the discussion. There are cases, I believe, and we'll get to it. I'm going to ask you guys to give your opinions. But there are cases where, right, like you shouldn't just 100% universally accept proxies. I know the Dark Stream has done vintage streams with proxies. I think that's appropriate. I think kitchen table magic, it's very appropriate, you know. Who's to tell you what you do at your kitchen table? But I'll let you guys, I'm not going to steal your thunder. I want to start with Optimal MTG. I asked him to be here today on this one. What's your take here between, and we'll just make the distinction between casual and competitive. What's your take right there on proxy usage at LGSs in particular, and tournament events? You can expand and talk about that as well.
So just disclaimer, whoever's listening to this, don't cancel me, please.
We all have to say that. It doesn't matter what opinion you have to say that, don't you?
I just don't care.
But I think in reality, I'm perfectly fine with proxies because I'm perfectly fine with proxies existing in a casual setting. So it could be Commander, it could be tabletop, it could be even like at a store level, right? Like F&M. I think F&Ms should be more okay because they're not really offering anything, right? Like any kind of like, I think any weekly Magic event at an LGS store is fine for proxies, right? And should be encouraged because I know that there's stores that run legacy events and they like to run maybe a 10-card proxy event situation, right? Like those are common, especially with vintage. So I get that; those are fine. Where I find the gray area begins to occur is if you are allowing proxies in competitive REL events that offer RC and PT invites as pricing.
Have you witnessed that situation before? I'm honestly not aware of what's going on in those circuits. I don't touch the legacy and vintage communities, so I'm actually very ignorant of what their expectations are. Is this a hot button issue for legacy and vintage? Do other people share Connor Roth's opinion here? I'm gonna ask John Ramos. John Ramos, what do you think?
Look, man, I am not a vintage or legacy player. I used to, and the big thing about proxies, and I sort of share the same opinion as Optimal does, is that you do not get to play with proxies in REL events if it's sanctioned by Wizards, as in the LGS runs an FNM, and it's sanctioned as in it's rated, or back then they were rated, but essentially every time that you use your DCI number, that means that it's an REL event and you can't use proxies, and it's like non-negotiable. Now, there are FNM events that have vintage events. Vintage events are generally not sanctioned by WotC, because if they are, then you can't use proxies. And generally speaking, in the vintage community specifically, they allow this. So I don't really care. And there's been a discussion before where EDH has their own proxy deal, and they like have their own, certain people make their own proxies with like anime characters and like redo.
Oh yeah, alternate art. Yeah, alts.
And like, yeah, and I'm not saying like alts like people draw over them. I mean like they make their own card, you know, frame with a picture on it, and then they print it out and they just glue it onto the card or whatever. Like they do that type of stuff. There are alts like people like draw on the cards and stuff. Like that's fine too, because EDH is casual, whatever. But there is a distinction. So if you're trying to use proxies in tournament level play or any competitive scene, like that's just a no-no. And everybody knows that. It's not like there's a group of people that are like fighting for this, which is why I don't understand what the original tweet was all about. Like I can understand if you're playing in an REL event and like somebody came up and was like trying to like, you know, play with proxies in even in an FNM, because that's where you need to squash it in like a small community or a small, you know, LGS or whatever, that somebody tries that. You're just like, look, man, you can't do that here, because that just takes away from the spirit of the game and the spirit of the competition. Like if you want to use proxies to test and stuff, that's fine, but you're not going to do that here in a competitive scene. But to go off online and go absolute nonsense on it's not even a hot button issue. Like it's all with the group that you play with. And if the group universally accepts proxies, I don't understand what the big deal is. And if the group that you're with all accept the fact that proxies are bad, then so be it. And that's where it stops. If you're trying to sell them, if you're trying to compete with them, if you're trying to do anything other than it's just for casual and just that, then proxies are fine.
Thank you, John Rabos. Turbox, if you're in here, if you're able to speak on this, I wanted to ask your take as well, because and I am a little ignorant of what's going on too. I'm asking informational for the audience and for myself. Is there controversy surrounding this? Did somebody get caught cheating? What spurned, like I'm clueless too as to what made this comment happen.
If you're referring to Connor Roth, are you referring to the context surrounding?
Yeah, I have, and that's why I have the share screen up. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with it. I want to know.
I'm trying to find if there's a nice way to say this, but Connor Roth, you can edit this out unless you're live. Connor,
there's two versions, Roth, but yeah.
He is a player who historically will rant and blame the most bizarre and absurd things for his losses, which is kind of funny. A lot of people who play Magic Online know who he is. That's why we were every single one of us Magic Online grinders was just memeing the shit out of him because it was so absurd. Because that same day, I think hours before he even made that proxy tweet, he had went 1-4 just in a league. And he does this thing where he will lose and find something to blame. And it's usually like the casualization of Magic or
right
proxies. And in this case it was proxies, which was so bizarre, and I think I don't know, I think people like that who just have such a hatred for proxies. Whether or not you agree with proxies or not, someone like that who has such an intense hatred for proxies is just a little weird. It's not healthy. It doesn't help anyone or contribute to anything. It is quite literally toxicity by definition. I see the stream. He then went on to start offering women content creators advice.
Okay, this provides some context.
The Anna Thornton thing was fucking hilarious, man. Because hilarious.
I don't know who Anna is, but I saw that and I had to come in and just kind of start ratioing him.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Pretty bad take right there. It seems like somebody who feels kind of isolated and is lashing out a bit.
I think the funny thing about that whole ordeal with the content creator tweet and the EDH proxy tweet is this is the best part about this is you can go and look at the profile caption, and the profile caption states that you're the most objective Magic player on Twitter or X as it's now called.
I see that.
Like I don't begrudge anybody, what their online presence is. Like your digital footprint is what it is, and I've learned a lot since joining on Twitter, which I haven't been on Twitter for that long. It's only been for like 2 or 3 years, but I've learned a lot since starting and to where I am now. The digital footprint is like, it's basically an extension of who you are, but it's all by perception because you only get to show what people you want them to see, because that's basically what online presence. And we can get into a whole discussion about that, but you can't put stuff like this and then say your whole online presence is to be objective. Like that's not objectivity. It's not even close. And that's why you don't have followers. In a nutshell, I'm not saying that this is the discussion about that, but just you can't say you're objective when you make biased opinions about where you are. Because getting back to the proxy discussion, it's universally accepted that they're fine. Like no one cares about them. It's the moment that we know it's a problem. But it's only a problem when you try to buy them, because you have to be very, very careful about where you buy your cards. It's like almost at the point now where you can't really buy from any online store. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I only think there's like 2 or 3 places that people buy their cards from now, because you have to be able to show credibility, because there's so many cards now that are on proxies and they're getting better by the year, and you can't tell the difference. Well, you can tell the difference, but you're not going to be able to tell the difference if you haven't been around the game for 20, 30 years, or you're already in that and you already know what to look for. So like, if you really want to know, you can go find certain places online. And I know Frank Lepore on Twitter, his online presence, he was doing a couple of posts on Facebook like once a week about buying from TCG Player and going, look, man, I just got scammed again. Like, not like scam, but he's like, he buy cards all the time, and seeing, fake cards and showing what the differences are, and on camera, like picture side by side, you can't tell the difference. Well, you can, but the average person's not going to notice. So,
good point. I think when I was much younger and Magic was in its infancy and Pokemon was a thing, I remember fake Pokemon cards were a huge problem. Just like Chinese-made Pokemon cards. And that was a problem back then. I can't imagine now with modern printing techniques and capabilities that it's gotten any better. I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often, honestly.
Well,
just counterfeits.
So for Magic, it's difficult to do. I mean, it's not difficult in the sense of like you can find proxies, like that's not hard. It's just that the one thing that I know that WotC did is they are very, very specific about how their cards and their product are. So like you can tell what type of card quality it is based on what they use for their printing process. And it's like sort of like a I don't want to say a trademark, but that's basically how it is, because nobody's been able to replicate specifically how WotC does a Magic card. It's sort of like, you know, the way that they do it. It's sort of like a secret, because you can't really replicate it, because every card that you tear in half has, you know, a different color, whereas WotC's color is blue. And there are certain watermarks and certain ways that WotC does their prints to, you know, basically for you to be able to tell the difference. There's two, I'm not going to say what they are unless you really want me to, but there's two hallmarks of knowing the difference between a real card and a fake one. And one of them you actually have to not the fold test, because that whatever. But there's one where you actually have to scratch something, and that usually you could tell, because the Magic card, the real Magic cards don't scratch off. So
Yeah, they curl up like crazy.
well, so not only that, but you're on the front of the frame, the very bottom center where there's a little silver shiny piece on the card. Usually fake cards they have that, but it's like sort of like glued on, so you could sort of scratch that off. And on the back, one of the colors, I'm not going to say which one, you could tell the difference by looking very, very closely at the color differentiation on one of the color circles, and you could tell the difference between real and fake ones just by looking. But
I bet it's like a Pantone thing. Like ICPJs could probably tell me about it, but it's like a Pantone number that only they have or are capable of producing.
Yes.
Okay. That makes sense.
Does any of that even matter though if you're not playing in a setting where you're getting your deck checked for counterfeit?
Not really, no.
I mean, that's the whole point. Is it's like 1% of the player base are ever gonna have a deck check, you know? Like, it's not happening at Friday Night Magic.
Yeah.
It's probably not happening at a lot of like RCQs either. Not that I'm encouraging that at all, but I'm just saying, like, I have been to I think maybe 2 or 3 GPs where an opponent has played a card and I'm just like, that doesn't look real, but it's a duress or a bolt, so I don't really, it's not like it's a Gaia's Cradle, so I don't really give a shit. And stuff like that. It's like, I don't know. It's just such a weird debate to have.
It's like people debating like estate taxes. Like nobody's ever going to be affected by it, but we all want to have an opinion on the hot take, I guess. I don't know.
All I know is that tweet had close to 500 views.
Yeah, it did. I probably just gave it some more. Dude's only got 132 followers though, so it can't be.
What's funny is like he tried to brag about how his engagement was up by 3,000%, but it was literally because everyone was telling him he's a loser.
Yeah.
Like, how does that make you? How does that make you grow? When people see you, and for what it's worth, he's not a content creator. He is a very infamously bitter and salty Magic Online player.
Yeah,
but if you,
he's got a Twitch.
He doesn't stream. Because if he streamed, there would be so much video evidence of him just being a very mean person. But no, like if you ever want to know how not to be controversial in like a beneficial way, like someone like me would do, look at him and look at me and just notice the difference. Like that guy did not know when to just sort of accept that his take was intentionally really bad, and all of the evidence pointed to it being a take he posted purely to just spew hate as opposed to like him shit posting or him trolling.
Yeah.
He legitimately
Trolling is an art.
yeah, and he was I know. He was legitimately blaming proxies despite him never playing in a setting where proxies are relevant. It's just like, as funny as it is for me to blame Commander for everything, I do it ironically. This guy legitimately believes that subculture and Magic, those proxy friendly people, he thinks that they're like cancer to the game, and it's like, why do you care? You play Moto. You're never playing against proxies. It's so bizarre. And even if you were, like, what do you even care? Just win. Just be better. I don't know. It's insane.
That's the other point too, is none of this touches on skill issues at all.
Yeah, because he's never winning anything either. He's always going like 1-5. So it's like, it sucks because I don't want to feel like we're bullying him, but he's such a good example of the kind of person who is like pushing this narrative that proxying is ruining the game, especially in the context of like vintage and legacy. Like, as somebody who owns vintage and legacy decks, like actual cards, I would have no one to play with if I didn't also print or have ways for my friends to print cards to play with together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't check my friends' cards if they're real, and if I know my cards are real. I would trust that my friends' cards are real, and I'm not gonna narc on them if they aren't, and I'm not gonna do the light tests. I'm just gonna sit down. I'm gonna shut up and shuffle. Hashtag shut up and shuffle. Right?
Hashtag shut up and shuffle. I like it. That's his thing too. It's on his that's on his profile. Oh, thank you guys for your input on the topic. I think we had to touch on it. We had to give some kind of nuance, some kind of clarification, because we all pretty much agree. Like, it's really not a hot take or a cold take at all. He just made it one by being very gatekeepy about it. It's, proxies are acceptable in certain settings and not acceptable in elevated competitive settings. I think everybody kind of feels the same way. It shouldn't be a controversy. If that's the end of the episode, that's the end of the episode, but we may have some LGS stories. Do we have any appropriate, semi-appropriate, actually, I should say. If they're a little spicy, that's cool. TB, did you bring one today to tell us? I might make this into a segment.
I have a lot, I guess. What do you want to know? I Uber eated a bunch of Hershey Kisses, and they're about to get here, so. One time, I'll tell this story really quick. I've also been drinking. So I'm a little like out of it. I'll tell the story really quick. I will name drop this person because a lot of people who play East Coast Magic and were playing like GPs and shit through like 2013, 2017 are familiar with a player named Mikey G. And Mikey G was very infamous because he was really bad at cheating, but really good at never getting permanently banned from like LGSs in like South New Jersey and Philadelphia and that general area. And one time, I don't remember what it was. It would have had to have been Kaladesh, the Aether Revolt pre-release. I remember because there was the cardboard cutout of the gremlin, the little monkey looking thing, like the ET looking motherfucker. The power went out while I was playing him, and from where I was sitting, I could see just fine. And I watched this kid just start looking at the top cards of his deck, thinking that the power was the lights were dark enough to where I wouldn't see him, and I didn't say anything. I'm like, what is he doing? I hope he's trolling, but he was not. And I don't know. That was that. I watched this motherfucker cheat, and then I was like, hey, what are you doing after like 40 seconds? And then he said he was conceding, and he just wanted to see what he was going to draw. And I was like, yeah, you're right. You were conceding. That's my story.
That's the perfect thing to say at that moment. I love it.
Oh, I hated that kid. I threw his backpack on the roof of an LGS once. You should probably cut that part out.
I'll probably cut that. Maybe not. I don't know.
I don't think anyone cares.
Oh
This was
man,
like 10 years ago.
many worse things have happened at LGSs. I'm sure. I know John Ramos can probably attest to some of that. Oh man.
Yo.
Yeah.
Yo, I like I said, I got stories of every LGS I've ever been to, and it's good ones, bad ones, ugly, indifferent. It just depends on what the context is. But like the one that keeps coming up is the one where my good friend at the time told the store owner that I hope his next child has hooves. And like he got banned from the store, but really the context of that whole situation was we're all in an F&M, and there was a swear jar because back in the late 90s, early 2000s, like apparently that was like a big deal, is you're not going to swear in my store, but only certain people could, but you had to pay. It was like a hidden tax, and people didn't care because like $1 a word, they ain't give a shit. So, but I don't remember how it got started, but basically he's playing the owners. I guess they were married at the time, and she hadn't had the child yet, so she's still pregnant, and they're playing, and I don't know how it happened, but basically he swore and he didn't mean to. It just happened. And somebody had said, "Hey man, you might want to go put $1 in the swear jar." And he's like arguing with him, and he's like, "I'm not doing that." And then the owner comes over, which we all knew him. I personally knew him. He came over to our house all the time. Matt's like, "Hey man, you're gonna put $1 in the swear jar or a quarter, whatever." And he's like, "Man, I'm not doing that." And he's like, "You're gonna do it, or you're gonna get banned." So so he's like, "All right, fine." So then he gets up, he still leaves his stuff there. He pulls out $5 and he's like, "Here's a $5 bill for your fucking swear jar." And he puts it in there, and then he he counts out all his swear words to say, "Look, man, I'm gonna pay for $5 and just throwing that out there." And so he's like cussing these people out, and then they're like, "Oh, you're fucking banned." So then after he's grabbing all his stuff and leaving, he comes back in, like after he puts his bag down outside, because I'm like standing like in between like the door, and I was just like hanging out there. He comes in, he pulls the door open, and he's like, "Oh, by the way, hope your fucking first child has hooves," and then he closes it.
I love it.
Bro,
I love it.
That dude used to get in trouble weekly, man, because he would just say the stupidest shit, and he would like get banned for like 2 weeks, and then, yeah.
Oh my god, I had so many experiences. So many experiences with people like that in my LGS as well growing up. Just like one of my best friends was also kind of the bully of the place, and he would just get kicked out weekly and have to apologize weekly. And we had a swear jar as well. But oh my god, yeah, that reminds me so much of the experiences I had as well. Anybody else? Thank you, TB. Thank you, John Ramos, for sharing campfire stories. I dig it. Optimal, you already kind of told one that we're not going to leave in because you asked me not to. But did you have anything else you wanted to share with us today? That shit was great, by the way. Thank you, John Ramos.
No, I don't really have any other like more tame stories.
All right.
I experienced a lot when I used to live in Quebec. That's all I can say.
Yeah, maybe some of the folks at home understand based on that, right? Quebec.
What goes on in the LGS kind of stays there, so to speak.
That makes sense.
It's a Wild West out there.
I mean, every LGS I've ever been to, there's always been, a group of people that I don't want to say loves to start shit, but they do. And they don't expect anybody else to do anything about it because, well, they're Magic players and they're mostly introverts and they're not going to say stuff. But my group that I hung out with, we weren't like that. So we'd always get into verbal spats with one another because, you know, I didn't grow up like that. It's if you don't like something, if you had nothing nice to say, don't say anything, but you're not going to take that from anybody else. So when you hear people talk massive shit, you say stuff back, especially if it's nonsense, like, you know, put money in the swear jar when, you know, you didn't even define what the fuck it was. So whatever. But yeah, I mean, there's times where somebody got kicked out for having weed in the store.
Oh Lord, the 90s and 2000s.
Not like dealing. Like I know I think Turtlebox was like, yeah, you're dealing in the store, but like not really.
Oh, I've witnessed that too.
Yeah, but like I always had fucking, you know, drugs in the store. We never had the cops called, like, ever.
Yeah, that never happened, no matter what. And I've witnessed fights in the store parking lot a lot of times
like,
too.
Fights or nobody brandished a weapon. Like in my experience, I'm sure that there's been like somebody's like, yeah, man, have the cops call them. I've heard of one of the LGSs in Kansas get raided by cops because of drugs, but I wasn't there, so I can't attest to whether this actually happened or not.
Oh my god.
But, all the LGSs I went to, the coolest LGS I went to was not the first one that I went to. Like Clubhouse Comics was the beginning. And then the LGS I went to a lot after that, when they shut down, was 10th Planet in Maryville. And then I don't know why I stopped going there. I think it's because Matt like left and he didn't go there anymore because he went as the owner and then he basically got bought out, but he still wanted to work there. So he sort of like did that, but he wasn't like working as much and he didn't work on Fridays. So we're just kind of like, we didn't go there no more. And then we found another LGS in Lansing, Illinois, which is not that far from the house, which is Gameopolis changed to Geo. And that was a thing for a while. And then I joined the Army and left, and that place shut down. Pastimes was the regional place that, you know, all the grinders went. But like, as I said, the majority of the stories were from 10th Planet, and it was, I don't know, like I said, the majority of it is just like what people say. So like, you know, stuff that people have said in LGSs like 10, 15 years ago when I was coming up, when I was growing up, like, you can't get away with that shit here, like, today.
Hell no.
So like some of the stuff that I remember that people were saying is just like, I could say it, but I'm not putting it out there. That's kind of why,
no.
Like, sort of like how Optimal's like, yeah, man, you can't say racist shit on this. Yeah, so
yeah, I feel
I'm not doing that either, because yeah, there's a lot of, you know, certain things people have said, and I remember a few of them.
I think the
funny ass stories that I'll keep it. But I will say, to top it off with a story that it's very short, but it was I think it was an extended tournament at Pastimes. Like I don't want to say a GPT or a trial, but maybe a PTQ, not sure. But this is an extended tourney where tournament was still a thing. And basically extended is just sort of how standard is today, where standard was always a 2-year rotation, but extended was sort of like 4 years, or an extra set of blocks that were still a part of, is a different format. This is before modern. So, but extended was a rotation also, but it was a lot longer. So instead of like every 2 years, like standard was like every 3 or every 4. And tournament was still around, and I don't remember if it was like the second or third round, doesn't matter. And all I remember is we're all huddling around one of the last matches that were going on, and dudes, one side is a introvert player and the other one is very, very vocal. So he's like, you know, he's laughing, carrying on, talking to the people that are next to him, some of the friends or whatever. And it's like a very, very stale board state of we're waiting to see who draws what, because it's sort of like one of those whoever draws something good, like the game just ends. And he he goes to untap and he goes to upkeep and he's like, all right, let's go. Knocks on the deck. He draws his card and he's like, they make an I win for 2. And he casts Devastating Dreams, which is a additional cost pitch. It's a double red. Pitch as many cards as you want and it deals damage to, I don't remember what the actual card does, but it's basically that. And he's like, he's cast it and he says, oh man, I cast Devastating Dreams to make an I win for 2. And like they both stare at each other for a second. He's like, and he claps his hand. He's like, pound it. And he puts his fist up in front of the fucking playing field. Man, hilarious. And everybody's like, it was like one of those last minute last match type vibes or whatever.
Thanks for sharing. There were I think the takeaway is we all grew up in a very different environment than what new players are being exposed to now, right? For better or worse. I also grew up, I mean, in the South, like West Central Georgia, LGS's, Carrollton, LaGrange, Columbus, Noonan, Atlanta. Like,
do these paved roads come as a shock to you when you get to the city or whatever?
No, really, man. Like off some gravel for real. So I was exposed to all of it. I really was. I was toughened by it. And as a young Mexican American, I was looked at sideways a lot of times. I had to deal with that if I wanted to be in the space, So I feel like as a veteran, like I earned my spot. You know what I mean? So it's I feel both ways. I'm gonna say this real quick. I feel both ways when I look at the current discourse on Twitter, on Reddit, on Facebook, on social media in general, around MTG, around EDH, around casual, around non-casual, competitive. And I'm very thankful that new players get to experience a more accepting setting, right? A more welcoming setting. And I encourage that any way I can. I'm sure all of you do as well. But at the same time, it's sort of tough to relate in a lot of cases to what new players complain about from these spaces, and that's a fault. I don't think that's a good thing. I think that's just coming from where we come from, a harder time, a harder space, a space that was less welcoming. It's just it was more rough, and it's hard to relate sometimes to some of the complaints that we hear. And I'm not going to specify any specific complaints, but it's like we were weathered by some tough LGS experiences. I think that's a huge takeaway. And I wish the best on new players. What were you going to say, John Ramos?
I probably forgot, but
sorry.
No, it's fine. Oh yeah. So you were talking about getting looked sideways from playing in LGSs or whatever, or from where you were from, and that's basically the same experience that I had as being a little bit more brown than usual.
Yeah.
So it was always the outcast because the minorities or the darker complexion people looked at me because they're like, well, you grew up in a different town and you speak differently than we all do.
Yeah.
And of course the majority all looked at me the same way, just saying like, well, you're not as light as us, so you can't hang with us, you fucking weirdo. So yeah, no, I understand. And it's the same. It's not like that now because it was like that until basically I got into high school where I grew like 8 inches and
that'll change everything.
Gained like 50 pounds. So like, yeah, that'll change a lot because basically you're getting bullied until people saw you that you're over 6 feet tall, then they didn't fuck with you no more.
Yep.
So yeah. And I tried to do the same of being, part of the everybody or every group, like have friends from everywhere. Cause like I didn't get into the clique stuff. And then the same thing with MTG, like the gatekeeping cliques around and even online, the same thing. Is just like, y'all really are trying to be inclusive, but you've basically haven't helped anybody by pushing everybody away by doing the same shit. So
Yeah, doing the I just that's the only thing I want to say. My only complaint about the discourse is doing the same shit back is not the right way to go about it, and by any means. If you want to be accepted, right, honey over vinegar. Like just be kind to people whenever and wherever you can, and try to be as understanding as possible. But anyway,
if there's anything or any moral to the story of what the Twitter discourse has been, it is that there's a few things. Number one, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So
that's so true. Yeah.
So the person who posted the EDH take, if you do it right online, you can write your own ticket to anything. You get it wrong, and everybody remembers you, and it takes double the time to repair that, if at all, because that's not going to happen. And number two, or secondly, a digital footprint is a huge deal nowadays in 2023, because it's an extension of you. So if you're always like this and you always post and don't post with intention, or your intent is just to be an asshole, well, here you go. This is what you got. And if you're wondering why no one's taking you seriously, is because you don't take your post seriously either. So when you post nonsense like that, especially when your overall theme of existing on Twitter to begin with is objectivity and you're not practicing it, then that's why no one takes you seriously. And you'll get ratioed. And when you do, you're going to be upset about it.
Yeah, like,
course,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, as unfair as the online space can be with the pitchfork sometimes, I think, maybe like 4 times out of 5. I'm not going to say it's deserved, but it's understood. Like, even if, let's give him the credit of saying he had the right opinion, which he did not exactly anyway, that's not the right way to go about it anyway.
I as someone who does this on the daily, you can 100% make the most asinine tweet ever and just let it sit and just let people just foam at the mouth over what you were trying to say or what you meant. I think where he went wrong was he kept interacting with people in just the wrong tone. He kept trying to make fun of people for being poor, and he was like, actually, I'm not.
He did say some stupid shit like that, didn't he?
And then he would say that he wasn't, and it's like, no, but you are. Like, you can totally make a tweet that's as bad of a take as what he said. Maybe not necessarily problematic, but just a very bad take or a very bad criticism. And look at Ben Stark. Look at how Ben Stark tweet. Ben Stark will tweet and just reply to every single thing in his own tweets, and nobody will agree with him. But Ben Stark also doesn't go out of his way to call people poor losers. It's so weird. It's every single thing that this guy does, and this isn't the first time he's done it. I think I mentioned that earlier. Every single thing Connor does on Twitter, he wants, I don't know why, he wants people to hate him. It's so sad to see that that's how he thinks he's going to improve as a player or get attention from better players, because I don't know, at the end of the day he still sucks at Magic, which is what he's claiming is the fault of many things that are not at fault.
Let's bring back being good at Magic as being worth something.
I readily accept I don't play enough to be good, so I never said I was.
You do a lot of self-criticism.
When anybody was I think I don't think it was Turtlebox that said, but somebody said something to me, and I don't think it was Turtlebox. So somebody said something to me. I think I was on Twitter, and they said something to the effect of, "Yeah, well, you're hard stuck, and you bitch about how Magic is and all this crap, but you haven't done anything." And it's just yeah, but I'm not saying I'm good. In fact, my profile literally says I'm the worst Magic player ever. So what do you want? And it was in response to a tweet where I said making Mythic, and I didn't say top. I just said Mythic.
I remember this.
Mythic is not the flex that you think it is. And that's all I said. Like, I didn't say like certain people that make it are fucking trash. All I said was, hey man, some of you that say that making Mythic is like the greatest thing ever is not the flex you think it is. It's day 2ing the MIQs and, you know, winning opens or, you know, making money from this stuff. That's the stuff that matters. Just hitting the percentages or top 1200 or whatever is just like one of those deals where it's like, yeah, you're good. But, you know, anybody can have a good streak. Hell, Jeremy Lin was good for 2 weeks. So, you know, nobody's going to the Hall of Fame over that. But
right. It takes consistency.
Nobody said shit when I hit Mythic 3 months in a row after that. Like, I didn't care, but, you know, doesn't matter. But if you're going to make posts that are not in line or congruent to what you're saying based on what your profile is, and as we've already alluded, and you can make nonsense takes because people do it all the time, but once you start replying, because that's the thing, is you could shout at the clouds all you want. The moment you engage somebody is the moment that you basically relinquish the fact of you're in your space once you start replying. And that's
makes
really
sense.
The takeaway.
I agree.
Once you start replying is basically you're in the public eye, and now nothing is I don't want to say nothing is sacred, but basically all no holds barred now.
It's all all gloves off. All gloves off.
The moment somebody says something and you come on their reply and you're like, well, that's not what I said or I meant. This is what I said or I meant. Well, now you're engaging with them and now walking it back. So now we can poke fun and ratio you and
how he went about that was like so wrong, because you can have it's one thing to reply, again, going back to like how me and Ben Stark will like do stuff like this on Twitter and have become like known for it. It's one thing when people come to your post and you're replying to people on your post. What made it so much more cringe and sad, but like funnier, was he was going to every single quote tweet, every single meme about it, everything he thought was a subtweet. He tweeted over 400 times that day, all replies to things that he thought was about his tweet or was about his tweet. And not one of his replies was an apology. It was all just making fun of poor people. It was
because he came to Turtlebox's tweet and said the same shit. It's like, you're just mad that I do this or that or something.
Yeah.
I'm just like, wait, what?
Yeah, it's insane.
Well, thank you guys for the input. Thank y'all for the input. We're out of time. I'm gonna have to cut this one down a bit, but it's gonna be easy to make cuts because I think we hammered that point down. This is how not to engage. Like, I love that anime meme of the guy holding up the butterfly and like he's like, is this engagement? And that's what I want to ask. Is this engagement? And horrible engagement.
That's a wonderful
Did you see Piss Duggery's meme with the bicycle? Connor played in a event today playing Demir Test Shadow and went 1-2 and dropped. And,
oh my god.
It writes itself. If you put, I'll say this, if you put that kind of negative energy into anything, whether it be like life or magic, you deserve to go 1-2 and drop. That's it. Period. You're putting back what you're getting at that point. And if you spend 400 tweets being toxic over being bad and just I don't know. It's on you at that point. It's totally
man. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man.
The karmic wheel continues to spin. You get what you put in. Definitely.
Try that in my LGS, bro.
I'm hoping y'all are seeing that. All right.
God, that was funny.
We're going to call that a wrap. Thank you for the episode. Turtlebox official on Twitch. John Ramos MTG, Optimal MTG. Whew, what an episode. Maybe I just won't edit anything. We'll just keep all that and we'll all get canceled together.
That's fine. I needed to move on from Magic anyway.
We're all going to go play Digimon.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say like something for Blizzard. I was gonna
say
Turtlebox. Let them know.
Lorcana. We gotta go play Lorcana, y'all.
I can't wait for Lorcana.
Woo! Some competition.
I'm all about killing
You guys
zombies.
still play Pokemon.
Oh hell no!
I might go back to Pokemon. Let's do it. All right. Anyways,
do Force of Will.
from all of us at the Rebellion, don't forget: untap, upkeep, resist.
Resist.
All right, y'all. Have a good night.